of the saddest parts of any relationship is seeing it end. Well, still half of all marriages in America fall apart. And for couples getting divorced, it's never, ever, ever easy. But as we found out, it's just as hard on the kids.
Dear Mom and Dad.
I was only 3 when we left.
I was only 13.
I was only 8 years old when you got a divorce.
Far too young to understand or even to remember what happened.
When I had first found out about the separation and divorce, I didn't know how to react to it.
I didn't know what to feel when I first found out because I didn't know what getting a divorce meant at the time.
I never thought it would get to that point. You would have your fights, but you would always forgive each other and move on.
The two people who brought you into this world always loved you and been there for you no matter what, and have always loved each other suddenly don't.
When someone told me what a divorce was, all I could do was cry.
I was so angry, Mom. I had tantrums like a 3-year-old.
It's really heartbreaking when you think about it.
Dad, as a single mother, my mom had been pushed and pulled, trying hard to put food on the table. Yet she still found the time to go to school recitals and the money to get little treats here and there.
I was lucky to have friends that cared about me, and they helped me get through this hard time.
My life has its ups and downs, but I understand why you couldn't stay together.
I understand why you are divorced, and I'm glad that both you and Dad are happier now.
I don't want you to think that now I'm still hurt by it, because although it's not the best thing in the world, I wouldn't want it any other way now.
Mom, I forgive you for what had happened, and I'm glad that I see you every other weekend.
I don't live my life any differently now.
Sometimes it would be hard to see my friends and their dads, but being fatherless for so long, I've just gotten used to it.
I've learned through this whole process that everything happens for a reason and to just make the best of everything. I've also learned not to give up no matter what battles I face in life. I'm never going to stop trying.
Life is never a walk in the park.
I just walk the right path and pray when I'm going through hard times that everything will get better, and eventually they do.
Time really does heal all wounds.
And I thank you both for teaching me that. I love you now and forever.
The only thing I can't seem to get used to is the question that's still filling my mind. Why did you do the things that you did to us? Sincerely, April.
Your son, Nick.
Love, Jennifer.
Love always, Candace.
I tell you what, this story just hits a chord in my heart, because you may not know this, but I am a divorced single mom with a 7-year-old son. So when I see the story of those children, oh, it hits it hard. You know, it's interesting, having gone through a divorce as a parent, many of us who've experienced divorce, it's an excruciating, painful situation that can be filled with shame and regret and just anger and so many different emotions. But I think one of the many challenges that we as parents face is that we get so consumed with the pain and anger and all these things in our own that our kids kind of get shuffled to the side. We forget that they're feeling many of the same things that we're feeling. So I want to just say today that if you are a parent who has either gone through a divorce or knows someone who's divorced, you know, now's the time to acknowledge the pain of our children. It's time, because they're no different from us. So you may say, okay, Christy, I've gone through a divorce, but how do I even deal with all this? How do I deal with my children's pain? What do I do? Well, I've had to ask myself that same question. And I think the first thing is to realize that just as God is concerned about your hurt, God is also concerned about the hurt of your child. So you got to acknowledge it, number one. Number two, we have got to be a living example to our children. And that just doesn't mean throw scriptures at them and throw the Bible at them and say, just go to God. What it means is that how we deal with our hurt and pain, they're going to do the same thing. So that means that we got to take that hurt and pain, hand it over to the Lord, and how we handle it, we got to model that for our children and say, you know, Lord, I hurt. This hurts, but Lord, you got to help me. And I forgive the person who hurt me, and I lay it at the cross. And when our children see how we do that, they can in turn do the same thing and hand that pain over to the Lord. I think another thing, too, that I've learned recently being a mom of a single parent, being a single parent mom of a 7-year-old, is that I thought that because I birthed my son, I know him. I know him at his core, and I should know what makes him tick and how to handle situations. But you know what I've realized in life? I've had such a huge struggle sometimes raising him. And you know why? It's because I realized that even though I birthed him, I didn't create him. But you see, God created our children. And so when parenthood and raising children become really, really difficult, we got to hand over our own understanding to the Lord and say, Lord, I don't know what to do. So, Lord, will you give me wisdom, discernment, and understanding to know what makes this child tick and what ticks him off and how to handle him and how to love him? Because when we do that, I tell you, God can give us a great sense of insight in how to help our children. And here's a third and final point that I want to talk to when it comes to divorced parents, and that's this. One of the greatest commandments that the Lord gives to our children is to honor their mother and the father. We have got to help our children honor their parents, and we do that by respecting each other and by loving each other. And so how can our kids honor each other when we're not honoring our exes? So we need to honor them by loving them, forgiving them, and being kind to them. Well, listen, if you want more information on divorce and how divorce affects kids and what parents can do about it, just log on to our website, that's cbn.com. We have a really, really great interview with psychologist Kevin Lehman. And once again, you can log on to that and just get some greater insight. And just know that God knows your pain. I understand it. But you know what? God says that he's a father to the fatherless and a husband to the widow. And he's going to help you and your children prosper.